Hey, everybody. Welcome to the second installment of the NIRA Podcast. That's the Northwest Indiana Realtors Association. Used to be GNIR, if any of you longtime folks. And they've done a lot of changes, and they've had to because we've been so hot in real estate here in Northwest Indiana. They've been able to attract some major talent, and some of that's sitting right to the right of me. Let's start right here with the kind of new COO. Some of you may recognize her from other positions in other companies throughout Northwest Indiana. But Dawn Michaels, how are you?
I'm good, Jim. How are you?
All right, man. You've sat in this, not in this exact studio, but with me several times in other jobs. Just give a little highlight about who you are.
Sure. So I came from the nonprofit area. I was the former executive director of Habitat for Humanity of Northwest Indiana for 8 years. And I have always had a passion for housing, and especially for affordable housing. And so when this opportunity came by, I thought this is a fantastic partnership with my former background and what I want to go toward.
We have kind of like mash meatball surgery here on terms of podcasts. So we were waiting for the last one, and I'm like, finally I go, Dawn Michaels, what are you doing here? And I'm like, oh, you're working with NIRA now with Novak? And
yes.
You're like, oh, yeah, I guess so. And Elena and the rest of the folks. But welcome in. They're getting, obviously, way qualified person to come in and work on operations and someone who understands the challenges we have in housing everybody around here, there are multiple challenges.
Absolutely.
The other guy here is in the field. He's been there for a long time. Introduce yourself, would you?
Yeah, my name's Palmer Myers. I'm a senior, I guess I'm old. I used to be an account manager, and I'm a senior account manager with Meridian Title. I've been doing it. I've been at Meridian Title. Next week it'll be 25 years. I was at another title company for a couple of years before that, and then actually got my real estate license in 1990, and I was a realtor for buying and selling for 9 years. I'm also involved with Mortgage Banker Association. I'm the current chapter president. I've been that for 13 years because I guess I do a pretty good job. Nobody wants me to step down. And also in 2019, I was the state president of the Indiana Mortgage Banker Association. And I just currently got on what Dawn just left. I'm on the board now for Habitat for Humanity for Lake County. I grew up in Ohio. Been living in Indiana since I was a junior in high school. Graduated from Hobart High School.
Wow.
And graduated from IUN and been here a long time.
So, all right, you guys have both been here a long time. I know Dawn, she graduated with my little brother. And Palmer, you went to Hobart and graduated what year?
1979.
All right.
Yep.
That's what I thought. I thought you were 80, but you're 79.
I'm only 65, Jim. I'm not
yeah,
80.
okay, good enough. So both of you folks have had a lot of experience in the Northwest Indiana real estate market from different angles, but I'll just say it. Have you ever seen anything like's going on right now? Dawn, you first.
No, absolutely not. And when you look at affordability for people who are living paycheck to paycheck and being able to afford a starter home, there's really no such thing as a starter home anymore. Oof. Under $200,000, you can't find them. And when I first bought my house, easily about $100,000. That was a couple of years ago.
Well, I mean, you get right to your angle of coming from Habitat, in that I think the average age of first-time home buying, I think Elena told me this, was 40 years old. And I'm like, are you kidding me? People, I mean, when I was coming up the ranks, you were 27, 28, 29. You were maybe to start thinking about buying a home in maybe early 30s. And if you waited till 40, it was like way late in life.
Right. Now
that's the average age of the first-time home buyer. Why? Why is that?
Affordability. Affordability, I believe, is the key. I mean, Palmer, what do you think?
Well, I tell you what, last week something happened that I didn't think would happen. I thought my son was going to rent forever because he told me that one time. And I said, if anybody asks what your dad does for a living, please don't tell them. But he finally bought a house in Highland. He's 31 years old. So
what a great age. My daughter bought one at like 27, and I was kind of against it. I didn't think that she necessarily, still moving around, and she just wanted a house and bought it at the beginning of COVID, right at the beginning. And I'm like, what a great timing that was. And I'm like, people like her coming up, they can't even get close. I mean, that house is close to doubled. And I'm like, I just look at, young couples with young kids living in apartments that they could just having that little backyard and putting up a swing set. And then it's Saturday, you're out there, you're like weed whacking and you're pulling weeds and stuff. You take so much pride, and it really adds to the quality of your life. And that option is closed down. Now, part of it is not just, the affordability of, wages maybe not keeping pace with certain, the way that they cost, but it is partly because we're so hot.
Absolutely.
On my street, I looked around, every house that turned over, 4 houses, every last one of them was bought by somebody coming from Illinois that thought they got a steal. I'm sure you see that, Palmer.
I remember we did a closing a few years ago, and it was it wasn't coming from Illinois, they were coming from New Jersey, and they wanted a closing on Saturday. So my wife goes, I'm going to see you this afternoon. Oh, and I said, I'll be home within the hour. Those folks couldn't wait to sign the documents. New Jersey had the same thing Illinois does. They live in it for the house they bought in Dyer. The taxes were 3 times less, and they got a bigger house. They didn't even read the documents when they were signing.
Yeah, and I think part of the the NIRA podcast, it's only the 2nd episode. Elena has brought this as kind of a storytelling thing. We almost have to start every podcast with that story. Now, these may play 2 years, 5 years from now. People will be like, wow, it's all different. Or, it could be, we hit a recession, and, that's not the case now. It's a lot more affordable. Or I think it could even be worse, is that what's 220 now is 320 in 5 years. That is a distinct possibility that makes it even less affordable for those new home buyers, Dawn.
Absolutely. So when I went to a conference in Washington, D.C., they spoke exactly about that. They were saying that in the next 20 years, a $250,000 home will probably be $1 million. Which is very scary.
It's just very scary because wages aren't going up
Correct.
that fast.
Correct.
And then all of a sudden you got to have double income, and then you got to pay for childcare. It's a specific age group, but it's not just younger people coming up. It's people that have been in an apartment and they're 48 years old, and maybe they raise their kids. And there's you want to give all your kids their lessons and their maybe a Catholic school or whatever, and then you're like, all right, do I just do nothing and buy the house, or do I let them get involved? And that is a real opportunity. Your son wanted to rent, and but somehow he came over to the good side.
Yeah, for what he paid for, he was living in downtown Chicago in a 480 square foot studio.
Wow.
And the rent was like unbelievable. And now his mortgage payments are going to be a little bit less than he's paying for what his rent, but it's his house. He doesn't have to pay for parking. He doesn't have to pay the taxes. He didn't pay taxes in the apartment, but his property taxes aren't that bad. So
well, and
very
he
affordable.
probably doubled the square footage.
Oh, he's got a 1.5-story house.
Yeah,
3 bedrooms and everything. And
you don't realize there are
backyard.
people listening to this podcast that know that scene. I came out of a studio apartment in Chicago, got a bigger apartment here, and then eventually got a $69,000 home for me and my whole family, which is me and my wife, and it was 2 kids at the time. We couldn't stay in an apartment anymore, and quite frankly, if my wife, whatever, if we didn't have a relative in the mortgage department, we'd probably still be living in that apartment. So they really walked us through, which you're in a Mortgage Bankers Association. A lot of times people they gotta find someone that's really going to school them through, because they're probably a lot of times right on the edge of being able to qualify. If you know all of those ins and outs, you might be able to squeak in, whereas the person that doesn't know all those ins and outs and doesn't have that type type of assistance. So the mortgage bankers we don't even talk about, I think we're going to have in at some point. That's an important part of the process, Palmer.
And you're lucky. I think we're all lucky here in Northwest Indiana. There are such a great group of mortgage bankers that have been doing this for a long time. You quite nicely asked me what year I graduated from high school. But I think the average age of a mortgage bank, and any lender, not just Northwest Indiana, I think somewhere in the 50s. That's the average age. And a lot of these folks that are doing the mortgage banking in Northwest Indiana have been doing it for 20-some years. So they know the area. They know all the ins and outs. The business is changing every day, as does real estate. Because I remember when I started as a realtor in 1990, the listing and purchase agreements were front and back, one page. There was no lead-based paint. There wasn't any of that stuff.
Well, there also used to be a book.
Yeah,
that's the rumor, and it wasn't an MLS online.
I started with, if anybody remembers George Kepshar, I started with Century 21 Kepshar in Maryville, and great family. Then I worked for the Prices. I was fortunate enough to work for two great real estate families, and I remember just when they switched to the computers. And a couple of the older realtors wanted me to do the CMAs on the computers because they couldn't figure it out. It just cracked me up. It was fun.
You know, speaking of computers, we would be remiss if we did not shamelessly promote the website, and that is NIRA.realtor. You can go there and you can enter that has all the local listings for sure. And there's a lot of different ways to get into MLS multiple listing service, but you can do it right there at NIRA.realtor, and then you can also find your own realtor that way, which brings us to the point, before we get into basically the meat of today, you came over from other, nonprofits and so forth, but what is there, like, how many, is it 3,000 or 4,000? 3,000 realtors in Northwest Indiana, and they all have different needs and wants. But the whole thing about NIRA is, I guess, to be a portal and to be an ear for all of and an advocate for all of the realtors. So as you come in, Dawn, what would you like to say specifically to the realtors?
I would love to say to the realtors, and I hope that they understand, especially the new realtors, that we are here for education. We are here for advocacy, and we are helping to promote everything that they are doing and supporting them to the best of our capabilities. And whether it is through forms, whether it is through being ethical and compliance, having all of the different vendors at their fingertips when they're putting a house on the market, when they're walking through with their customer or their client, and then handing them over to the title company and making sure all of that goes smoothly and we don't run into some of the issues that we're going to start talking about.
So that's for you realtors that come across the podcast. And if you got any suggestions on what we should talk about, or quite frankly, want your own podcast, Adriana with 2 N's at WJOB1230.com. She is the puppet master behind the scenes here. I'm just coming in, going to talk for 27 minutes, and then she runs it, schedules, and can get your own podcast. But any talking points or anything you want to hear about in future episodes, you could do it there also. So let's go on to that title guy that has a lot of war stories, and I've heard some of them in social settings, but there's a lot of money obviously we're hot. Okay, here you are near the end of the summer in 2026. We're hot. It's a hot market. There's some amazing projects on the board that could just make it go from 220 to 320 very quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And but some of these homes are massive amounts of money, the apartment complexes, that kind of thing. But they're large sums of money. Whenever there's large sums of money, you attract the scammers. And you attract some of the fraud, and that's what we want to talk about with you. Overall, have you seen a pickup in people trying to do scams, or is the internet kind of keeping them away that you can track it? Where are we with fraud in the real estate market right now?
I think that we at Meridian Title, we're getting better and better at educating our employees and me included, obviously. We go through these know before. I don't know if you've heard of that before. Know before. It's in the office. I've heard it on. Yeah, I think Barstool.
Yeah.
Was talking about that on another radio station that they do it. But we have to watch these 15-minute clips, take a quiz, and one time I didn't read it. I misread an email and I saw the know before thing pop up, so I had to take a refresher course. But we're really trying to focus on reading the emails, making sure that the spellings are right in the emails. Like you said earlier, when I was going through the talking points that Elena gave me, one example came to mind in one of our Indianapolis offices. A realtor gave what they thought was our wiring instructions. They were not. And the money was $360,000, I think it was gone.
Oh my gosh.
Just wired it to
somewhere, not to us.
You know what? That is a horror story that nobody wants to go through, but I wanted to start specifically with wiring the money. Nobody shows up with a check or anything. Well, very rarely. It's all wired. And I mean, what are the things to look out for when you're saying, all right, I'll go ahead and wire that $542,312.47 to this number? What do you got to, what do the participants need to look for?
I think it all started just real quick, and then I'll answer the question. I think it started back with the Good Fund statute, and I forgot what year that came out. I think it was House Bill 1158. I don't know why I remember that, but we had to learn that for a couple of years. And I'm sorry, the Good Fund statute, where anything over $10,000 and above has to be wired. Anything less you can bring a cashier's check. We do not accept personal checks. Those aren't good funds. At Meridian, we don't accept money orders. I used to have a couple of investors that I knew really well. Palmer, you've known me for 30 years. You know my money's good. Well, I understand that, but this is for your protection. And so now nobody gives it a second thought with the wiring. One of the talking points mentioned, give your thoughts about wire fraud. Well, wire fraud is what you just said, Jim, a minute ago. The people are looking for real estate, number one, because it is large sums of money. We just started doing something called certified ID on every transaction. We used to just do it when, like, say, Jim wasn't going to be in Hammond, but he's going to be on vacation in Florida. We could set up a notary to meet him, and then we do a certified ID. He has to take a selfie, and then we get a picture of his ID. And now we're doing that on every single file, just to protect the consumer more.
So how does that work? I don't understand how that works.
It's an app. We send a link actually to Jim and his wife.
Okay.
And they just you just open it up. You take a selfie. You make a copy of your ID. You put it right through the portal. It goes right to Certified ID, which is the company we use, and then we get it in our file. And so we verify before the closing, because you never know
that the IDs are matching with all the information.
Exactly.
So
wow.
Dawn's a little bit younger than we are, so we've had to go through this to
thank you,
to get our Social Security account. And that was I haven't bought a house in a long time, so I didn't realize that before they'll give you all that information, they basically, I think it's Certified ID or maybe a similar verifying company, and you got to take that license, and then you got to take a selfie, and then they got to be put in different spots, and then before they'll do anything with you, they bring it all together. And if you go down to the office in Hammond, they have it up on the screen. So the license and selfies have become a huge part of it, because you can't really lie on that and then they give you the link right now, and you can only do it so it's not like you can upload a selfie from your phone. They can tell that you just took it and that is right now, and they can tell by the verification of the license. I'm all for that. I'm not a big fan of giving up my fingerprints, but I don't mind giving the facial recognition and all of that's involved. So really what that is, it's a verification process.
Exactly.
Now, there is the old-fashioned way of using the phone and calling people and verifying that way. Do you guys do any of that?
For the
For the wire
the
fraud.
wiring instructions.
Yeah.
We aren't, as salespeople or any of our escrow staff or the whole company, we're not allowed to email wiring instructions. Now we can email them to lenders, but the consumer, the realtors, we're not allowed to. They can either come to our office and pick them up, or we can read them to them over the phone, or through our Meridian website, through our transaction management system. You can get them that way. We give you the last 4 digits of our account number, and then you have to call to get the other ones.
Another layer of
protection.
Another layer of which someone buying a house is like, gosh, is this all necessary? Yeah, it is kind of. Now, having a stack of papers, an inch thick, that always kind of bothers me. But the actual verification process, man, keep verifying whatever you want. Because if I'm buying this house and I'm going to transact $500,000, it better be going to this person, right?
Exactly.
That's sitting right next to us. You have, we're talking about purchasing a home, and that is probably the number one is, got to make sure you're wiring the money to the right place. But you also have people that are renting, and there are rental scams out there that are going on. And I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about that, Palmer.
You know what? I'm not too familiar. I don't want to lie to you. I'm not really familiar with rental schemes that much. I think one thing, just getting back on what we just talked about with the wire, when we give you the wire instructions, very important. There's one red, look out for red flags. One red flag would be if the person on the other line is saying, we need you, probably get that wire to us right now, right today. That's a red flag. If something, that's always, no matter even wire instructions, anything, if it seems urgent, hold off on that. Investigate that. Always, too, we always tell everybody, once you wire the money, call us. That's why we give you our 800 number. We verify we got the money, that we got the wire, that the wire has been sent, and we have the money.
I've also
Very
heard.
important.
I'm sorry. I've also heard that it's part of a scam if people don't allow you to look at the rental property prior to. We're out of town. You can't look at it. But
here's the pictures.
Right. Here's pictures, and we need your money before we'll go ahead and rent it to you. So I've heard that as well.
Oh wow. I've never heard that, but yeah.
So Palmer, let's extrapolate. You've been in this for a long time. I mean, have you seen any real horror stories on some sort of problem with the transaction and that didn't go through, or you mentioned the one where the $360,000 went to the wrong account. What about you personally? You seen anything, or I have a feeling. Look how he's dressed and groomed.
I remember.
He's probably not going to ever.
No. I'll do this.
Yeah.
I remember a long time when I first started at Meridian. I remember they had a closing at one of our offices, and I think there was I was a mortgage broker, and there was a fee on there that was very high. And so when they went to verify it with the lender that they brokered with, they had no idea what that fee was, and there was the broker's car was squealing out of the parking lot, and obviously that deal didn't close. We try to, as much as we can, make sure everything's correct and answer any questions we can, because it's all about the consumer.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's a good one. And I think there's a story in the paper right now about a guy in real estate that is accused of a bunch of fraud and was able to get, according to the charging documents, was able to get away with it for a long time. Just basically, yes. I mean, here we are in the region. We kind of look at each other and go, all right, we all trust each other. We're all in the same fishbowl. And that works and has worked in the past, but there's a lot of people coming from the outside right now, and you got to watch what you're doing.
Exactly.
So definitely that's something, obviously, that the realtors need to be aware of, and that people buying and selling homes are in the market. You got to look for that. So, we covered that, but I want to talk directly to you, Palmer, maybe being in this thing for a while here. There's some big projects on the docket for Northwest Indiana. I just did a podcast with the Carpenters Union, and they're like, oh my gosh, we're going to have enough people to do all this, data centers, Bears Stadium, refurbishing of some of the mills, hospital, medical. I mean, it's like people just discovered us, and we've been here maybe in the last couple of years. We've been here all the time, and we've always known. It's like, man, someday, you know, this should be where business, I mean, look where we are and what we have. Project 5 years from now. What do you see real estate market-wise?
I think what Dawn said earlier, I could see home prices being double, triple in 5 years if hopefully the Bears situation, for example, comes to fruition. Once we get the convention center built in Lake County, I think that'll help. Hotels.
Yeah, there's another one I didn't even mention. Huge. I think 150 million or something like that.
Hotels there, hotels in Hammond. The mayor of Hammond, he's got the biggest Y. He's got the boys and girls. He's got it going on. So I mean, and all the other communities are following suit. There's great communities: Valparaiso, Crown Point. I live in Munster. Everybody's got a lot of activity, and then there's a lot of growth, a lot of excitement.
Same question, Dawn.
I think that we have to focus on, truly we have to focus on what is actually available. I mean, we have to look at some of the towns where we need infill houses. It may be a vacant lot in between an older neighborhood, but we have to look at some of that in order to ramp up our production, in order to be able to provide the capacity for all of these people coming to Northwest Indiana.
Certainly, density is a huge
Absolutely.
discussion in that. I mean, maybe in general, the more dense you get, you know, the little cheaper it becomes. But then, you know, it's more property taxes, but more services needed and so forth. So one of the things that just boggles my mind is here I am in Hammond, and I'm like, Palmer, I live in Munster. I drive, I think, 1.2 miles to and from work every day, and that's all I've driven at the end of the day, 2.4 miles. But every once in a while, I got to go out to Crown Point or Valpole or Lowell to sell some advertising or whatever, and it just boggles my mind that a road I went down 3 years ago, I hadn't been down, and then all of a sudden there's like 2 new subdivisions on each side, but it's the same road. There's not a bigger road, and then you can't even get onto it. And I think my biggest fear is the infrastructure, especially in mid to South County.
Absolutely. I live in Valparaiso, and I've seen over the past 10 years a huge amount of traffic increased from Maryville to Valparaiso. And I mean, I used to be able to, you know, there were hardly any lights, and there weren't a lot of people commuting. And now it's Route 30 is packed every morning and every night going home.
We all know that if you grew up in Lake County and then you moved to Porter County, then there's used to be kind of a wall. You don't really do as much anymore, and you don't come here to eat. You're just like, wow, I'm a Porter County person now, which I imagine you are. But I have a bunch of relatives that have done that. And every time I get one of those invitations, hey, we're having a grad party for so-and-so, and I'm like, oh, my gosh. Or we're having a get-together on Friday at 6. I'm like, do you know what that's going to be like to drive through Valparaiso to Couts right now? Or, you know, it's just like, come on, man. But that's the price we pay for all the growth we've had. Yeah. And that's why we do this podcast. It's the NIRA Podcast. You can get it on Apple, Spotify, wherever you want to check out your podcast. You can also go to WJOB 1230 on YouTube, and you can watch us, and they'll post a couple of highlights of today's podcast on their own social media. Thanks a lot, Palmer. Thanks a lot, Dawn. Thanks a lot to Elena for putting all this together. Thank you, Adriana, for running this whole thing, but mostly thanks to you for watching and or listening. And until next time, we'll see you later.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the NIRA Micro Podcast. I'm Jim Deedlow. He's Palmer Myers, and we're just going to talk about one little thing to do with real estate. If you want to look at multiple listing service, go to NIRA.realtor. If you're looking in the market, start there. If you're a realtor, obviously that's where you go. That's the starting point for a lot of real estate action in Northwest Indiana. Palmer Myers, a 1979 graduate of Hobart High School, has been in and around real estate for a long time. And what we want to specifically talk about today, Palmer, somebody's coming up through college right now, or maybe, just did a couple of years at a community college, and all of a sudden it's like, man, I want to get into real estate. What would you tell them?
I'd say right now, I think there's a good time to get into real estate. I think we just talked about it on the longer podcast, that all the growth that's going to be potentially happening in Northwest Indiana, the Bear Stadium, the Lake County Convention Center, all the doings in the Porter County area, LaPorte, Michigan City. There's going to be people coming in for high-paying jobs, hopefully, and they're going to need homes. So this would be the time to get into it and learn from a lot of the experts that have been doing it for a while.
So when you think of getting into the real estate market as a person coming in and they could be in there, they could be older and just want to get into real estate. That's the first thing everybody thinks of. Oh, I want to become an agent, or I want to buy and sell homes, and I want to represent. But there's a lot of other jobs in the industry that are not agents, and let's go through them. What you do, you've been in title for, I don't know, three decades or more. Yeah. Talk about that. I mean, there's not a lot of, as far as I could see, when people come into younger people or newer people to the real estate market, they go right into being an agent. But there's all this infrastructure that needs to happen. What do you say to people new to real estate, maybe about thinking about those jobs?
Well, number one, when you first get into real estate, and then I'll jump into that, is when I first started in real estate, it was hard. I think a lot of people kind of they think a pot of gold just going to automatically appear. You have to work at it. You got to make those phone calls. You got to I cold called a lot. I took a lot of, I think Floyd Wickman offers it's called Sweat Hogs. It's a listing course. It cost a little bit of money back then in the 90s. It's like $800, which back then was a little bit of money. But it taught you not to be afraid of the phone. They gave you scripts. They gave you everything. But you got to work at it. Back then, they didn't have as many teams as they do now. I wish they would have. It would have helped me a lot, learning from the pros. But I really enjoyed it. But then my shift into the title industry, I just wanted to do something else. But I really enjoyed working with realtors. I really enjoyed the people, the loan officers, the builders, the developers, the attorneys. And I said, and I met the reps back then that worked for the different title companies. And said, I'd like to do that. So I got into the business that way in 1999.
So are there a lot of new people to real estate going into what you do?
It seems like lately there's a lot more loan officers coming into the business. Like I said earlier in the podcast, that the average age of I think a loan officer is somewhere in the 50-year-old range. But I'm seeing a lot of new blood, if you will, coming into the industry because we need that. Because I think I'm a baby boomer. I think you are. We're going to be retiring at one point in our life pretty soon, and we're going to need new people to come in to not only the mortgage industry, to the title industry. And we're in a unique position when you think about title. I had somebody come to our office one day looking around our office, and can I help you? We're looking for the showroom. They were looking for tile. I said, no, it's title.
There you go. So I guess the point is, we have a lot of young folks or newer people and jobs changing and that kind of thing that come through us here. And I think sometimes people don't realize that there's all these other jobs in the industry, certainly title, but a big one is the mortgage banker.
Sure.
And like my buddy Steve Delkamp, he did it forever, and he just retired.
Yeah.
And we talk about it. He's like, dude, man, we got to tell these young people that this is a good job. You can really make some money as a mortgage banker. Talk a little bit about, I guess this is more on the financial side versus the legal and regulatory side. What kind of person would go in to be a mortgage banker?
Number one, you have to, if you want to be a mortgage banker, like a realtor, you have to be a people person. You got to be willing to, go out there and try to get business, not be, go in for the appointments if they want a 5:30, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock appointment, if you can. Now, banks are somewhat regulated because they close at 5, but people coming into the office. The other jobs that are available, you could start out as a processor, which is the people that kind of do all the paperwork. The loan officer sits with the customer, writes up the application, and passes it off to the processor, where they're in contact with the surveyor, the termite inspections, anything to do with the file. There's also all the managers that manage those people. There's research people. There's all sorts of opportunities.
So that's the message for today. He's Palmer Myers, been in the real estate industry for a long time, started out as an agent, and then went into basically the process, or not the processing, the title and making these things close. But certainly there's a lot of great careers out there in the mortgage banking industry, certainly in the actual processing that you're talking about. So I guess I just wanted to bring that out. You got any other comments on this?
I would say, because I'm on the board, and this is how I make my living, calling on realtors and mortgage bankers. For those failed by owners out there, call a realtor. They're the experts. One thing that always fed, when people sell their home by owner and they're having open houses, I drive around with my wife, and I'm like, that just kind of boggles my mind with all. Unfortunately, we live in a society where there are some bad people out there, not all, but some. The lock boxes are way better than they were in 1990 when I started. Now, if somebody just opens your door, your agent will know. So use a realtor. That's what they're there for. They're good. We have a great team of realtors in Northwest Indiana.
He's Palmer Myers. I'm Jim Delos. It's been a NIRA micro podcast. And until next time, we'll see you later.